In a short stretch of time, from the mid-90s to the early 2000s, a relatively small group of people started playing around with this thing called the World Wide Web. They had the audacity to think they just might change the world. This project introduces you to the OG players from those hallowed days and lets them tell you what it was like and how you should have been there. Episode 17. Today we're talking to Scott Heiferman and Brendan and Ed, the founders of iTraffic. It's going to be amazing. These guys were innovating in media before anybody knew what media was. Well, internet media anyway. Ritesh.
Hey, brother.
Good to see you, sir. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday. I can't believe it's 17 episodes.
I am internally famous for getting to episode 9 of any given project that I try. So the fact that we're almost double that, I think that might stick. And
I think this could be something we could keep going for a bit, right?
Not for nothing, but I think we both have bought some new hair products.
Yeah,
like,
look
you're
at
looking
this.
pretty good there, buddy.
I think we should try and get a hair product company to sponsor it.
I think that could be really good. That could be really good. All right, let's get some of the housekeeping out of the way. We do this every show. You should be used to it by now. If you want to see past episodes, you want to see who's coming up, go to youshoulda.com. I can't believe that domain was available still, but it was. So youshoulda.com. Also, if you're watching here and you worked with the iTraffic guys and gals, heckling is available. Ritesh will be paying attention to comments. He can bring them up, so feel free to give shout-outs. That's always fun. And then, of course, as always, because Ritesh and I really want to be influencers, even though we're old and fat, hit that subscribe button, especially on the YouTube channel. I think we need like 2 more till we can get a vanity URL. So that's it.
17 episodes later, we finally get to 150 subscribers.
Exactly.
Crazy,
We're
right?
close. We're close, buddy.
We are close. And by the way, I'm not fat. My clothes are shrinking.
Oh, is that what it is?
Yeah, it's the dryer.
Yeah, your head has gotten bigger. When your hair was really big, your head looked very tiny. So anyway, let's bring these guys on. I'm so excited about this.
Me too.
Terrific. Scott, good to see
There
you.
he is.
Brendan, Ed, gentlemen.
And we use that term very loosely with you three.
It is so good to see you all. So you are. I think you're all the co-founders. You were at least very early of iTraffic, correct?
Yeah, we were all. Yeah.
That was it. Fantastic. So why don't we just do a quick little round robin of you guys? Just introduce yourself and what you're up to now, and then we'll sort of dial back the Wayback Machine and go learn how this all happened.
Scott.
Yeah. Hey. So it's great to see you guys. I'm so glad you're doing this. Scott Heiferman here in New York City, not far from Broadway in Houston, where we've all spent a lot of time. And I'm pandemic parenting and starting something new. I haven't started a company in 20 years, but Brendan and I are doing it again.
Oh, that's so exciting, Brendan.
Yeah. Hey, I'm Brendan. I am at families right now in Los Angeles for the holidays, and as Scott said, worked together for a long time, a lot of our lives. We're now starting our third startup. So iTraffic was the first, Meetup was the second, and then we're on our number 3.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And Ed, how about yourself?
Hello, guys. Ed Detrone. Right now, what I'm doing is working at my alma mater, Manhattan College, and I'm actually working with students, teaching them how to do startups. So it's a great role. I absolutely love it. On the side, I also have another startup going on. It's called FameBoard. It's a technology that lets people upload images to a billboard in Times Square. It's kind of a new technology. I'm checking out.
Yeah, that's great. That's fantastic.
Hanging out in Pelham, New York, with my wife and kids and my puppies. So things are good. Good to see all you guys.
Completely aside, my middle son graduated from Manhattan College. He was on the super team. Yeah, great story. He loved his time at Manhattan College.
Wow.
And he's now coaching Red Bulls, so doing well.
Scotty, go Jaspers.
Yeah. I wish I'd have known. I would have given Ed hell when my kid was going there.
That's awesome. Well, where we like to start here, as we say on You Should Have Been There, is at the beginning. So generally around 95 to 2002 is the window that we're talking about here. So what led you guys to start iTraffic? How did you all meet? Who wants to go first? How did it all begin?
Yeah. By the way, do we have an audio?
I don't know.
We got an audio issue. Yeah.
Somebody, why don't I mute and see if?
Okay, well, I'll just hit it and I'll let the host hear it.
I think Ritesh might have been the offending microphone.
Yeah, I think so. No?
No, it's back. No, hang on. Let's mute Ed. Talking, and we're talking.
Hello.
You said.
That's Ed.
Oh.
Something's up. I don't know if you're using it. Yeah, it might be you, Ed. If you've got an external microphone, maybe use the internal mic or something like that.
So I'll take it. God, so iTraffic my God, I haven't talked about iTraffic in so many years. I don't even know how to do the pitch. It was there were just a few of us, Kyle. There were just a few people in New York thinking about the internet. Yeah. I had landed from University of Iowa. Got a job at Sony Electronics in New Jersey, which I thought was New York City, because if you grow up in the Midwest, it's all basically the same. And then realized that there should be a thing called online advertising, and so quit my job at Sony to start an online, advertising agency. And there was this thing called agency.com that was, and Razorfish. Those were the only anything out there. You were building websites, and we were like, I want to promote the websites and help get traffic. Right. Call it iTraffic. And at that job at Sony, when I went to orientation, and sitting next to me was this really tall guy named Brendan, and we sat next to each other at orientation, and worked together ever since. So the whole idea of iTraffic was like, help companies promote this new thing called websites, and thought about what would be search advertising and all that. And but I didn't know a damn thing about advertising at agencies, and here I was starting to get some clients. It was just me sitting in my apartment, and I didn't know. And so I was like, I need to find some geniuses who know I was like looking for Don Draper, basically. And then comes this guy. So I posted was it Craigslist? Yeah, I posted something on Usenet or Craigslist saying
Craigslist wasn't around yet. So
right.
Usenet. Yeah.
Was it Usenet? Yeah.
It must have been Usenet.
Yeah. So I basically just posted a thing saying I'm looking for someone, who knows the advertising business. And this guy Ed replied, and I was like, I'm 22. He's like, a few years older. I don't know, 30. I'm like, you're a genius. You're like an experienced, because he had basically, because I thought anyone, if you're 30 years old and you work in advertising, you must be like a king, So we partnered up, and we were off to the races.
Wow, that's amazing. And what were you doing before? How did you discover the internet? How did you know you wanted to do something? Like, did you have an aha moment where you were like, "Ooh, this is a thing"? You're just out of college.
Absolutely, yeah. We all have that. But I was kind of long into being the nerd from way back. And then I was at the University of Iowa, and I remember the moment my buddy, his name was Ryan Nelson. We're sitting at the library computer center, and he pulls me over and he's like, check this out. And it was the Mosaic browser. So it's like, whoa, what is that? What's possible with that? And then just at that time I was graduating from college. I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do with my life. I made a pilgrimage to, I went to Macworld in my senior year of college. I'd basically hardly ever been on a plane before. And I said, I need to just go to this thing called Macworld in San Francisco, and I saw this presentation about General Magic. To any of you, there's now this documentary about General Magic, and found myself, that's kind of what led to that that job at Sony. But Kyle, I remember being lonely in the city and not knowing anyone and didn't know other people who were interested in internet stuff at all. And there was this thing I heard called the WAC, the World Wide Web Artists Consortium.
That's right.
This is true. And I'm like, I show up. It's in the Sony building. It's like 30 people at a table, 20 people at a table, and I couldn't believe my eyes. These are people interested in the internet, and I couldn't imagine that there were other people somewhere, and which that was a real inspiration for Meetup, actually. This idea of like just the power of what it feels like when you connect with other people interested in the same thing.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, WAC, or the World Wide Web Artists Consortium, was something that I started as a shameless attempt to surround myself with people that were smarter than I was. So like, I knew I wanted to do something on the web, but like the first site that I uploaded, none of the pictures showed up. And I'm like, I need people around me that are figuring this out. So that's how that started. And then, yeah, it was Monty Bartlett at Sony.
Yeah.
And his boss, I forget whose boss's name was, but he gave us that
Mark Ganeem and
oh my gosh, Mark Ganeem, there's a name.
But they gave us that big conference room. It held like 200 people in the Sony building, and that was heady times. You'd go to Midtown, you'd go to the Sony building, go to this big sort of Darth Vader, conference room, and yeah, we were talking about the internet and would invite in execs from AOL to talk about how awesome their version of the internet was, and then we would crush them. So that's great.
Then so you then put this thing, and then along comes Brendan. So Brendan, how did you sort of get involved with these reprobates?
Yeah. I was in college at Marist College in upstate New York, and they had a partnership with IBM, and they had you wired every dorm room for high-speed internet.
Wow!
Oh, wow!
And so I was introduced really early to, like Scott said, Mosaic. I was using Yahoo when I was on the Stanford servers, and so it was really second nature to my education. And I got a job as an intern at Sony in the corporate accounting and consolidation division, which is as exciting as it sounds.
There you go. Auntie, look at that.
Wow. That next to this kid at an internship orientation named Scott, who is holding something under the table that I couldn't quite see. And I asked him to show me, and he's like, I can't, it's a secret. That only intrigued me more. And I'm like, you can show me, you can trust me. And it was the first PDA, the Magic Link, and
wow!
Friends, and he called me. We had lunch every week. He called me a year later, and he's like, "Hey, I think I'm starting an internet company, and I think I need an accountant or something, and that's what you do, right?" And I'm like, absolutely, because someone had just called me a lifer at Sony. Like, I've seen your type before. You're a lifer. You're going to be here forever.
Oh, no.
You say to a 21-year-old who's working in corporate accounting and consolidation in like northern New Jersey. So Scott's like.
So that was that building in Weehawken, I think, right? Oh, Brendan, we've lost Brendan's Wi-Fi for the moment. So
it was Montvale or Park Ridge.
Yeah, that's it. That building. I remember that building. That's right. So while we're waiting for Brendan to come back, how did you get here, Ed? What did you do who did you upset?
Story is kind of like to take off on what Scott was saying is I had about 10 years of big ad agency experience. And so I left advertising because I was burnt out and I saw a lot of ugly things as you rise the ranks in advertising. And so I went back to school and I got a master's degree in psychology. And really not knowing what I wanted to do with this, I decided I wanted to stay in advertising. I loved advertising. I just didn't like the big agency world. And then there's the internet. And I started on AOL like most folks in '95. And I just knew that advertising was coming. And so I met with a couple of recruiters at the time, like traditional recruiters. And I said, I'd like to find a job in advertising, but on this thing called the internet. And there's like, nah, there's nothing like that, nothing. So I go home and it's a Friday night because it was around my birthday. And I'm on AOL and I see this post. Scotty, it was an AOL post because that's all I was on at the time.
Oh, okay.
AOL Messenger.
it was something like bulletin and so it was specifically what I was looking for. I was like looking for someone with experience in advertising to start this advertising online. So I called him like literally, I think it was minutes after you posted it. And we spoke and we said, let's get together the next morning, which was Saturday. And I showed up at the apartment. I don't know if you remember this, but like you're in a t-shirt and you got your glasses and you had sandals on. And I was like, wow. But we like really hit it off. We just like meshed it. We went out, we had lunch that day, and we decided at that point we were going to work together. Like we didn't agree on financial terms or equity, or we just said, let's do this thing together. And that was it, man. And I just, since that point, I've never worked for a big company again. So
essentially,
I credit you.
Essentially, it was just, like we met online and got married the next morning was essentially the.
Wow.
Wow. Look at that. You were way ahead of it.
So me and Scott are working and we've got a few good projects. We're doing a Netscape Now project where we're trying to get the sites to put this Netscape Now button on their sites, and we would send them t-shirts. And so then this kid, Brendan McGovern, comes in, man, and he's like the accounting whiz. And Brendan, I don't know if you remember, but we would sit together and decide which bills to pay and which bills to hold on. We were bootstrapping back then, and things were with the
That's amazing.
Yeah,
welcome back, Brendan. Keep going on your conversation. No, it's all good. So
laptop picked that moment to reboot. I remember back in those days, some of the fun part of like the early startup days was like figuring out how you're gonna make that next week's payroll, and like someone owed you a bill, and it's like you were gonna show up at their office door maybe if you like had to make payroll, and it was just exciting to be 22 and trying to figure it out.
Yeah, you have to understand, Kyle and Chan and Jeff and Craig.
Yeah,
they were like real. They were like they were slick. We can raise money. We're real. We have investors.
We got big company like Omnicom backing us.
Yeah. We were these schmucks like scrapping with like dimes and like, whoa, like what bill should we pay and we weren't like big shots, but then we grew to 100+ people. We were profitable. We weren't recontextualizing business, as Jeff,
Jeff famously said on 60 Minutes. Yeah, he'll never live that one down. But what were you? So I can only imagine like the level of complexity with media buying now versus what you were doing then. Like what do you remember of it? What was the thing you were actually doing?
Yeah, no, I mean, as Ed just said, I mean, it was like this. Hacking at promotion. I mean, the big, the lesson at Sony was like, I made the Sony's first like online presence, and I was going to get fired if I didn't get any traffic. So I was like, you know what I'm going to do? We're Sony. I'm going to start sending, and this is going to date us all. I'm going to send Walkmans to the engineers in the back room at AOL to get them to put a link to Sony from the welcome screen of
AOL, because that was big real estate.
But fast forward to answer your question, I mean, I think that we did get really sophisticated because we put our chips down on the notion that there was going to be a thing called search, and that we need to work with the search engines. Back in the day, and we came.
Was this Alta Vista? Like, what were the big search engines back then? Do you remember?
Brendan, who are you writing text to?
There was Excite. There was Alta Vista.
Yahoo.
Yeah, Ask Jeeves, or did that
Ask Jeeves was another one. Yeah, I remember Ask Jeeves, which became Ask.
Oh, that's right.
That was the big rebranding.
Well,
wasn't Jerry Sharasevsky over at Yahoo? He was like the other big shot over there, right? That he was also working with you guys, I think, at the time.
Yeah, I mean, we were the buyers, they were the sellers, and we just started racking up all these Fortune 500 clients, being their online media buying agency of record, and which you just think about the scale of online advertising today. I mean, we were really innovating and riding a wave of and kind of catching a lot of people by surprise who were focused on building websites. And we were like quietly in the background, building this capability to like, promote and drive traffic. And so
it's actually really funny to hear Scott talk about the Fortune 500 companies that we would have through our door, because agency was at fancy 666 Broadway, but Meetup was at 1234 Broadway, which is at 31st. And we were in a old building that had non-working plumbing half the time, non-working heating the other half. Rats the size of cats walking around at night, and we would be walking executives from Disney and Big Book, which was like a yellow page type thing.
I remember that. Yeah,
through our hollowed hallways and saying, "Hey, don't step over that puddle over there that we don't know exactly what that is."
So I think Ed wants to add some stories here. Ed, sorry we keep muting you, Ed, because of the audio, but you were weighing in a bit there.
Yeah, Brett, my audio is messed up. I apologize for that. But this is a story that I actually tell McGovern. I tell this to students today. With the moral is, you never know where an idea is going to come from. And so early on, when we first got the Disney account, and I don't know what year it was, but it was when they were introducing the movie 101 Dalmatians, and we were brainstorming on what could we do for this release. And someone came up with the ideas, let's ask sites to put spots on the background of their sites. And sites were open to it, and they did it. And whose idea was that? It was the bookkeeper's idea, man. It was came up with it. And I still tell that story to the day.
You know what, Ed? That's actually great, because that was a transformative kind of moment, probably, in my understanding of my career, where I went from thinking like, "Oh, I'm a good accountant, and I can be a good accountant," to like, "Hey, I can be a more well-rounded and contribute more in terms of all aspects of the business," and has really kind of not just that moment, but I think that company overall just like launched me into a space where I felt that there was a lot more possible.
Oh, that's so amazing. Here's what I want to do. You guys were kind enough to send some pictures in. So one of the things that Ritesh and I have learned that these shows are actually about is, and you started it out good, Scott. You were like, wait, I don't remember 1995. What we've learned is these shows are about kind of trudging up the memories and being corrected in real time while you misremember them. But what I'd like to do is that I got to share. Hang on one sec here.
So
there we go.
Look at that.
Now this is a very 1990s kind of these are, I guess, the promo shots for the website. This feels like it's got some solid 1990s action going on. Any memories coming up here?
Oh wow, that's
incredible.
So these were shot by Ed's friend. I think his name was Frank. I'm blanking on his last name. And these were for our About page. And it was a time in the 90s when your About page featured every employee. First name and last name. This is before you got wise to the fact that recruiters would use that information to come in and steal your employees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's we realized then when everyone wanted to get into the industry, this was just a big recruiting page. So we ended up bailing on these. But there are also some.
Oh man!
Look at Scott. Oh, look at Scott. I rest my case. He hasn't aged a day.
He's got more hair. His glasses are bigger. But it's the same guy. It's amazing.
There's me.
There you go. Keeping the books.
Doing the books.
That's right.
Wow.
Oh, that's
amazing.
This is a good New York kind of office with the radiator.
Yeah.
From humble beginnings. Look at that.
Fantastic.
Wow.
Look at this shot. I noticed, this was all of the computers back then was the big 13-inch, CRT monitor. And then there was also, look at this. Opening the San Francisco.
Wow.
Yeah. I had forgotten that we opened a San Francisco office.
Yeah.
I don't know how I blanked on that until I saw this photo.
Yeah. I think that.
Yeah.
I think that
Corey
I think we can
Trefaletti
all.
What was that, Ed? Sorry.
We sent out Corey Trefaletti, who wound up staying out there and lives out there with his family now.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Sorry. Sorry, Scott.
No, I was just gonna say, you seeing the faces, and it's first off how everyone's sort of locked in your head as permanently 20 something when they're not. It's like looking back on high school, but the other, just like. Some people can get the glory, but I'm looking at all these faces, and you can say this about agency or anyone, but you lucked into these wonderful people.
Yeah.
You can see every single face and be like, wow, I feel like I know who they were. I could hear their voice right now. I could see how they walked, and they and they're just were great souls, and put their heart into it. And what a great thing to come up in a time when there's something exciting going on, what was going on with all of us, and that's all you can hope for is do you if you have kids, are your kids gonna come of age in a time when there's something exciting?
Yeah. We did this is because of that. Kyle one day said, "Hey, remember this time?" And I said, "I think we're a couple of years off on that one. I think it wasn't then, it was then." And he's like, "We got to capture this stuff because we're getting old and we're losing our memory." But Scott, to your point, and look at the four of you now, the three of you now, right? It's like back in that apartment, that will never be lost. And people have done amazing things. I just got a message from Babs saying, "Darn it, I'm going to miss this," right? So you still have that affinity where you mention the name and people bring up this memory and this nostalgia of that time when you actually were making a difference. This was an area between 94 to 2000 where we did change the world a bit. Yeah. But we didn't do it badly either. There was no, some, but in general, like-minded folks were getting together with a cause around this could be amazing. Right?
Yeah. I mean, that's so correct and so powerful. And I just look back on so many of those photos in that time and how many careers were launched and how many companies were launched in that time period and from that time period and the friendships that were made over that. I mean, I was 22, I think. And I have so many friends from that era who 25 years later, I'm texting with on a weekly basis. Not to mention this working relationship that I had with Scott all these years. And so it was a transformational time in New York, in the internet, and for these companies.
And what was it like in the office? You're working in the office, it sounds like you had, sort of some good grungy New York digs. So you got good stories from that, but what was the energy like? What was the team like as you grew from, you three Motley Fools, up to 100? Talk about what that was like.
I'll hand it to Ed in a second. I just want to, it's a little bit of a shame. I don't know anything different. I think for those of us who kind of grew up in the culture of the companies that we were a part of, we may not know anything different. I did my little bit of time in a corporate environment and wore a tie every day. But when Ed says I showed up on a Saturday morning with sandals and a t-shirt, I'm like, yeah, so and so in my home, in my apartment, what stood out about that? I didn't know that someone noted that. So I think that the casualness, the informality, the real focus on just doing great work and trying to do something significant is it's just old hand for all of us. I mean, it's just we don't know any different. But I still to this day, you have people who are in very different working environments, and they still they have this they still think it's notable to be in an environment where it's more important what you do and how you're changing the world than say what you're wearing or the formalities of the culture. But the vibe at iTraffic, I can still feel the energy of the space and the halls. Wow. And what that was,
Yeah, it's so amazing. Ed, how about you?
I got to say, for me, it was a bit of a shock. I was a suit and tie guy for 10 years at a college. And so, I even think I wore a button down shirt on that Saturday morning to meet with Scott. So it was a shocker. I found some old pictures of like the early days, and Scott's in like shorts and a t-shirt. And I have khakis and a button-down shirt, and it took me a while, before I realized, wow, what a different world this is. But I got to say, early on when we started winning a lot of clients, that it was important that we had that little component that I brought, which was let's get dressed up and win the Disney account, because Scott put a suit on too. I remember that night, so. It was a weird time as the world became more relaxed, because there was still a little uptightness out there, but we loosened everything up.
Yeah, that's great.
I remember when we brought in Steve Norcia from DDB.
That's right.
Kyle, and literally that first meeting, we had an art director with tattoos, piercings, and a ear pierce, and a young lady who had more colors in her hair than Steve had ever seen his entire life. And he came out to Kyle and said, "Where are the people who do the work?" Because I know them.
Yeah. When you bring in professionals, it can change things.
It was.
But,
how did you come up with the name iTraffic? That's an interesting.
I mean, the name doesn't come up much these days, but people think like, oh, iTraffic, but that's a knockoff of like iPod or iPhone, but we're talking, I mean, the iPod was
many years later. Yes, exactly.
This was 10 years, 8 years, 7 years before the iPod. It was the idea was internet traffic, interactive traffic, and just we were driving traffic, so put the I in front of it, and clearly, obviously, Steve Jobs was paying attention.
Yeah, Johnny Ives called you up and said, "Hey Scott, I need some help naming this thing." That's great.
Because I think Eyeballs was another one like that out there, if I remember, because they got acquired by
Michael Cohen. Yeah, wonderful guy. Yeah.
What were some of the things that you worked on? You mentioned that Disney project, Ed, and I remember that distinctly. I remember seeing the site where there was the banner, and then all those dots showed up on the rest of the site. It was like, oh yeah, we could do that. Like we were constantly thinking about how do you push the envelope, things like that. What were some of the things that you worked on, back then that were either big deals, or you did something interesting technically that you were like, that was pretty exciting to work on. Anything come to mind on those? Oh wait, Ed's got something to say. We've got to unmute you here. There you go.
Hold on, Ed. Say it again.
There was a few things, but two that stick to mind was we shared a company, an office space with a company called Site Specific, and we worked on a project together with Duracell batteries, where we created like a banner that you could see, the site was transparent and you could see the battery pack in the bottom of the screen. It was powered by Duracell, which was great, and it was a lot of accolades and that stuff. But the most impressive thing I think that we did, and I started telling you the story with Netscape and how if someone took a little unit and put it on their site, we rewarded them. It was really the start of affiliate marketing. So we had one called the client was CD Now. And this is before, you can look it up, but this is before Amazon Associates started their affiliate. But we did an affiliate program. We worked on it with CD Now, where we would have their little CD Now button, and what was displayed on a website, they were rewarded if an order was placed. So Scott and Brendan, we could take somewhat credit with inventing affiliate marketing back then. Yeah.
I like it.
Wow, yeah. I just remember that. That's amazing. It's amazing how we did that. I remember that we did something with the Oscars, and I'm trying to put my finger on what it was, but there was something interesting or transformative. But we might be scratching too deep in the memory banks for that one.
Yeah. I forget what we did. The Olympics. Scott, you remember the Olympics?
No, what's crazy is that just like a bunch of schmucks like us, like all these names. I mean, you guys had it too. I mean, you can just rack up these like big name clients, and I was like, it was a thrill of a lifetime. It's like I'm 25 years old and I'm doing this stuff for who's who of the from the Oscars to the Olympics. I mean, when do you get a chance to just kind of have this greenfield opportunity? And work hard and put your creativity into it. But I think, yeah, I mean, I think it's most interesting. Yeah. I mean, there's like sort of the interesting creative stuff, but it was I think it was really this like leading on search, which, I mean, you just think about the scale today. And if we had like, I remember early, I got a call from a guy named Jerry Yang saying, hey, you're interested in online advertising. Not many people are interested in online advertising. Why don't you come over and, work here at Yahoo? And Yahoo was still, this is like before, really big. And you think about, man, like, boy, I would have made a lot of money if I had like one of the first 10 people at Yahoo,
It's amazing, because I think the other thing, and this is the next sort of conversation we usually have, is around the culture. Because, I'm now working at Ogilvy, big agency. It's my first big agency job. Like you guys, my first agency job was at agency.com when I showed up to say, can I work here, right? And it was digital advertising. So I had no idea about advertising. I was an IT guy, right? So I now work at Ogilvy, and I've been here 7 years, and I still show things that we did in 1995. And these young creatives go, whoa, that's amazing. And then I say, yeah, we did that in 1995. So that whole thing of, we can do it. Let's just go figure it out. There must be.
Are they born before 1995?
No, they weren't.
Yeah, probably not.
But that culture. How did you foster that culture as you started to grow? Right.
I'll kick it off briefly. Is that like, it really, I mean, I stumbled on Ed, and Ed had this guy that he worked with. They were like brothers named Pete Maluso, and Pete, I was different than Ed. Pete was different than either of us. Brendan was, I think it's this true. Now, granted, I mean, it's not diversity from we're basically, a bunch of white.
You're right. It is diversity. Yeah.
But to think about, I mean, the culture, I think, was, came about from like really respecting the fact that we stumbled on these amazing people like Pete Maluso and Ed Dintrone and all of them. And so it was just a kind of a deep respect for people was at the core of iTraffic and let people loose.
Yeah. What do you remember?
Hold on, Kyle. Ed's saying something.
Oh, sorry, Ed.
Unmute him.
So I just wanted to, sorry, Brendan, but I wanted to follow up on that as far as respecting everyone. Like when we hired folks, we were looking for people who could take initiative, and Scott had these amazing interview kind of questions. But the thing that strikes me most is we wanted to empower people to learn how to make their own decisions. And, until you're 50 employees, you have to, you have to get really formal on documents and stuff. We had an employee handbook that it was a binder that you opened it up and it was one page and it said, use your best judgment. That was our policy. So Scotty, I credit you. That was a great idea, and empowering people to make decisions is a wonderful thing, because as when they're young, they don't know that they can do that. So
remember when we could get away with stuff like that?
I know, right? Yeah. Well, that was we had the original corporate motto of agency.com was figure out what sucks, don't do that. Like there was a lot of you can do stuff and just screw around because who was going to tell you otherwise? Right. Well, actually, in that case, MetLife told us otherwise. But it's a great point that Ed makes and Scott makes about like we were 20. I was 21. We were 22. We were like
we were
the
average age, exactly.
obviously under 25, and so you just come with this innocence and also this hubris and you can do anything. And it was the time of the internet where it was just being born, and so everything was possible. And just one word on Pete. There are so many lessons that I learned from Pete that still reverberate in my mind that I use all the time. And one is this concept of the emotional bank account, where he would talk about the investments that you make in your relationships with other people and how you make deposits into
into that emotional bank account, and then there are times that you can make withdrawals. And it is a management and a life lesson that I use all the time. Actually, most recently, I used it in a conversation within the past week. And so it's that formative time where you're learning from folks like Ed and Pete and others that just define careers.
That's so amazing.
What were you going to say, Scott? You'd sort of
just a tiny one right on that point. I have a really horrible memory. I just forget almost everything from the past, but it sticks out so clear to me that Ed Dintrone told me he would tell me about how relationships are so important in your career. And I mean, it's kind of obvious, but it just seared on my head that he stamped that on my head, and that has literally been my a driving force in so yeah, I mean, it's funny, we could be talking about the innovations and the internet and the blink tags and the HTML and all the technology, but this is just basic human stuff. That at the core, by the way, the internet is a network of people, not a network of computers. And coming off of iTraffic and starting Meetup, which iTraffic was a 4-year journey and Meetup was a 16-year journey. Right. It's at its heart, it's it's all about making something that is good for people and connects people and that brings people together. That was the feeling of iTraffic, and that was the business of Meetup.
Yeah, well, that was, for me, the brilliance of Meetup was that, sort of mixing of the analog and the digital, right? Use the digital to get people together to actually connect. So talk, if you can, about, what you learned from the early days, what you brought forward. I mean, it seems like you went right from iTraffic to Meetup, but, what carried forward? What are you still doing today that is informed by the things you did in the beginning? No, stumper.
Yeah. I mean, I think that thing that we just talked about, use your best judgment. So I think a lot of the management techniques and the culture, I would say, a lot of the Meetup culture was just informed by the culture of iTraffic, and a lot of that is around ownership and self-dependence and trust in one another. And just that kind of network. So that's
what are you doing now, Brendan? What are you doing at the moment?
Yeah, so Scott and I are working on our next thing. So we actually launched the team earlier this week with a product to launch in the next few months.
Wow.
Right. Wow, very cool.
Anything you can share with the internets, or is it still close to the vest?
I think I'll keep it kind of close right now, and
So, but there you go, right? You're continuing. You started then. It's just like Kyle, and all of the people that we've been interviewing with when Craig and Jeff were on, and what Jeff has done with OneDrop, right? One more thing. How can I transform something? How can I use? Yeah. It seems to be built in our DNAs, Well, I posted the other day on LinkedIn, if one more client says to me, give me something innovative, but show me where you've done it before, I'm going to kill them. Right. I think it sort of came into our blood, really, right?
Yeah. What keeps you? I met with Chris Needham, who is a creative director at agency.com. And I told him about my current startup, 8 years ago. And I said, I'm doing this new startup. And his response to me, he was like he heard the idea and he listened to it. And he just looked at me at one point at lunch and he goes, why do you keep doing this to me? and so I guess my question to you guys is why another startup?
Yeah. I mean, it's well, and to be clear, we're not I think, after agency bought iTraffic, which that's a whole chapter of all this.
Whole hour there, exactly.
I was 29 years old and made some money and basically didn't do squat for a year or two, a really precious kind of period. And here, we sold we sold Meetup. It's now going on, two and a half years ago, and so we've had this break. So it's not like, we're kind of obsessively running from one thing to the other and not, taking a break. But no, the answer is, I don't know. When you get a taste of like making a difference in people's lives. I mean, I'm sure this is the case for a chef. It's a case for a teacher. It's a case for a nurse. It's whatever. Here, we clearly the internet is it shapes culture. It shapes lives. And when you get a taste like we did at Meetup, for sure, of like you can have this put this little nudge into society and culture and have it really, and then just bask in like people saying that it's affected their lives in so many ways. Then you kind of feel like an asshole for sitting on your hands and not doing more. Trying to do some more of that. But
that's great.
Yeah, ideas are addictive, and so once you get a taste of it, it's like and it's over, and you've had a little bit of a break. You're like, okay, let's do that again.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, and something like Meetup, where it really did become this social meme, and it's referred to in the vernacular, right? It's a meetup, whether they're using your platform or not. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But we are old men.
Well, maybe we are. You're not. I keep saying this.
Like I was trading notes with Craig Canarek about we're trading like dermatologists and ophthalmologists because we live in the same neighborhood, and so I actually have to go. I have we're old now, so you got to actually take care of yourself, and so I got an ophthalmologist appointment in 10 minutes.
There you go. Well, we want to wrap this thing up to get you guys out of here. We've all Ritesh has a day job. I'm in my startup, so I still consider that like I'm sort of playing on the playground. So I totally get it. But so much appreciate you guys being here and doing this. And really remarkable to see you all. And yeah, y'all look great. Oh, we lost Ed again.
I
think the theme here is, Ed needs to get a new microphone.
Or learn how to use technology. He's still the Guys, this has been amazing to catch up with you guys. I'm getting text messages from people saying, I can't believe I'm missing this. Can you do another one? So it looks like you three of you will have to get you back on, because there's a lot of, I can't believe we're missing this, and please do another one. So we should try and do that, I think. If you'd be up. And I think we should talk about that moment. You grow the company, you sell it to agency.com. I remember the day you guys moved into 665. Was it? No, 20 Exchange Place. We moved down to 20 Exchange Place. I remember Babs and Tim in an office by themselves, Tim screaming at Babs and Babs screaming back at him. And then they give each other a hug, and I'm like, what the hell was that? So Mikhail, Rangaya, they all did well.
I do want to I want to give a final, kind of props to Kyle on there was a spirit that you brought those days to the industry, to agency, and to the neighborhood, or what we call Silicon Alley, that where it wasn't all business, and there was a sense of humor and a creative energy that again, it was the combination of all these things that made it all work. But I felt comfortable bringing my baby iTraffic to agency because it had that big part of Kyle's soul in it.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I always I looked up to you back then.
So Scott, now he's going to be completely insufferable with me.
Yeah, this is not good. My head's already big enough, and it's getting bigger because of the hairline.
Yeah, thank you. This was just amazing to walk down memory lane with you guys. And Ed, I wish, as I said, I'd known you were up there when I was visiting. There's a steakhouse around the corner that my youngest son Jake's.
Yeah, Jake's Steakhouse, right down
Jake's Steakhouse
on Broadway. Yes.
Yeah, I spent too much money in there the last 4 years. So.
Great, terrific, guys. Well, thank you very much again.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Good luck with the new venture.
Yeah. We look forward to seeing what the new venture is.
See ya.
See y'all.